In today's episode, we're doing a deep dive into the Eastern Canada real estate market, building a real estate pension for your children, and pay attention right to the very end. There's a special announcement. Let's go. Hey guys, how's it going? Russell Westcott. So hope you're having yourself a wonderful day. In this upcoming episode, I have a great opportunity to talk with a good friend of mine, Mr. Erwin Szeto. In this episode, we go deep into what Erwin's business is like, an update on the Eastern Canada real estate market, giving back as a real estate investor, and setting up your kids to win with a pension plan while they're still young. So if you're interested in a deep dive look into the Eastern Canada market and building a real estate business, this will be the episode for you. So with all that being said, let's get after it. Hey, and we're rolling. Hey, Erwin Szeto. Hey, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I'm excellent. Thanks for, it's been too long, Russell.
Yes.
It's been too long since we chatted. Probably more than 6 months.
I have to get the most important things out of the way first. My wife says hello, and how is Cherry, and how are the kids doing?
Let's say hello to Karine as well. Everyone's great. You know, we were well set up for this to happen. Obviously, we didn't know all this craziness was going to happen for the last 2 years, but having did a lot of the right things up front, you know, having businesses that create value, having a healthy real estate portfolio, and the MVP who doesn't get talked about enough is my nanny. So it's all the at-home school stuff was her problem mostly.
Yeah.
While I still went to the office.
Well, we're gonna date this podcast, so we're gonna date this a little bit. So first of all, happy 2-year anniversary of 2-week Bend the Curve. Who would have thunk, 2 years ago? It was right around this time when it was, I think it was, I remember like March 13th when kind of all heck broke loose. Friday the 13th was, I kind of coined it. Kind of everybody was just going, oh my goodness, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about, Bend the Curve, 2 weeks, lockdown for 2 weeks. And then now here we are 2 years later. So. Yeah. No more gray hairs, no more bags under our eyes, no more, extra roll above the belt line and things like that, So we're all better human beings now, 2 years later.
Yeah, we're all we should all be much more grateful, actually, having known what the S hitting the fan looks like.
Yeah, I 100% hear you. So Erwin, what's it like being on the other side? Meaning you're usually the one pushing the buttons and hitting the record button, and you're usually the one asking the question and being the gracious host of a podcast. What's it like being on the other side, being a guest?
It's different in that I have to come up with the stories, and I have to be the one that's supposed to provide value. Because that's why I did the podcast, and that's my own podcast, and that's why I had you on as one of my early guests. I needed people who knew their stuff to actually be on the show. Hence, I always had guests on. I had you on, I had Don Campbell, I had Julie Broad, for example, as a few of my first couple of guests, right? And so I need someone to be the value provider on the show.
So you're saying you got to work today, right?
I gotta make up some stuff. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I know for a fact, Erwin, you're gonna bring some fire today. Absolutely, you're gonna get hot in here very quickly. Woo! And I'm gonna pre-position it right now that there's gonna be an awful lot of bombs being dropped today too. By the way, so.
Yeah, I do have some very unpopular opinions, and that's as long as you don't mind, you can always edit it out later.
They're your truth, and nobody can ever fault anybody for sharing their truth. Right?
Yeah.
Geez, that might be a good name of a podcast, The Truth About Real Estate Investing or something.
And that's how the show name came up, because you and I both know there's a lot of shady characters. Anytime there's money involved, or power, generally money, whenever there's money involved, it's going to attract people with poor morals and ethics. Right? And that's the point of my show, is those people are excluded from my show. And let's shine a light on repeatable methods of making money that are morally and ethically correct. Right?
Yeah. Well, I know for a fact, it's interesting how, and I remember when you told me this, and my podcast is still fairly early in the journey And I know you told me this. It goes, there'll be a whole bunch of people that will start contacting you. You literally will start getting emails on a daily basis of, here's a perfect guest for your show and all this kind of stuff. And I remember you telling me something that really stuck with me. And this is what I try to add for mine, is you only want people on your show that you're a fan of, that you can learn something from, that is of high quality, high moral and ethical material. And that stuck with me. And that's one of the things is I could fill my guest spots up with hundreds of people and have a daily show if I wanted. But I just want to make sure that they're people, really good people adding good value to that.
Yeah. And I've been offered money. I've been offered a percentage of whatever I sell and whatnot. Yeah. And you know what? I have no interest. I'm not driven by money. I have many capitalist tendencies. But the safety and financial well-being of my listener, my customer, my community matters to me more than making a couple $1,000. I could care less.
Yeah, I've coined the term. I don't know if I've invented it, but I just kind of use the term. You're a caring capitalist, right? And we're going to get into a lot of your philanthropic work and a lot of the things that you're doing out there as well. But Erwin, it's almost so. Here's the question I'm going to ask. Two questions. The next one I'm going to ask, I'm going to prep you here, is about what you're doing, what you're up to at the moment. And it's almost easier to probably talk about what you're not doing. Probably a shorter list. But here's the thing. Yeah. You've probably been on many different podcasts, and you've told your story 10,000 times probably, and you're probably going, nobody wants to hear my story anymore. But do you have a story that you have not shared with an audience that you're aware of, that you wouldn't mind just sharing with my audience here today, that maybe somebody doesn't know something about you, maybe something in your past, something in your upbringing, something that maybe triggered you to get into this whole entrepreneurial space, or something that triggered you to want to get into investing and whatever you want. Is there something you haven't shared on a podcast before?
So that's actually just came up recently. I was part of I was attending a presentation, part of a mastermind for seven-figure entrepreneurs. And there were a lot of questions around money, right? So it's an exercise around one's relationship with money. So a lot of these, there are a bunch of questions that you had to answer, like for your own experience. And then hearing other people's experiences. So we would share after the questions were asked, we'd share each of our experiences. And what I found out was many people, successful people, did not have good foundational understanding of how to make money and what it can do and how to invest it. And then also from that conversation, I've been hard on my parents on how I was raised. Like, they did the best they could. They came to Canada when they were 17 years old, to a foreign country, foreign language, and all that sorts of things. So there are things that were missing from my upbringing, right? Which is totally fine. They did the best they could. But some of the things that came out of this discussion with the questions that were asked were things like some of the things that came out in that discussion was, for example, what did your parents teach you about money? So one thing that I thought about was my dad is. I remember when I was working minimum wage at a farmer's market, right? And I was making $7.50 an hour. It's like one of my first jobs. So when I got my paycheck, I'm like, oh, look, Dad, look at all this money I made. My dad's a doctor. All right. So for anyone who doesn't know, medical doctors, their billing rate's well over $300 an hour. So my paycheck was probably less than that. It was less than $300. But again, I'm young. I didn't have context. So he says to me, son, when you learn to make money with your mind, then you will make money. Right? And so I was around 16 at the time. I was around 16 years old, somewhere around there. And so so that always stuck with me. And then the concept of time is money. So the example my dad gave me was that he didn't give me an example. He just said, I love driving on the 407. So the 407 is a tolled highway here in Ontario, and it's not cheap. Like, to me, it's not cheap. But my dad would explain, like, Dad, this costs money. I'd say to him, Dad, this costs a lot of money. We can just drive on the free highway. I know it takes a little longer, but it's free. You don't have to pay for it. And he would said, son, my time is extremely valuable to me. When I work hard, and I get paid well over $300 an hour. So if I had to pay $20 to save an hour of time, that is a good exchange of dollars for time. I'm like, oh, okay. And so that's always stuck with me. And that's stuck with me being an investor and entrepreneur, in that if I can find low value things to trade my time for money, if I can buy things that are good value in exchange for my time, then that's a good investment.
Wow.
And that's how, so a story I have shared, for example, is when I became a realtor, I can't stand paperwork. So for any realtor out there, they would know how crazy this is. I hired my first assistant 6 weeks on the job, while I was still part-time as an agent, right? Because I can buy someone's time for what I considered a low hourly rate, which was below my hourly rate. And I know you've taught that many times from stage at Rain. You're teaching outsource all these low-paying jobs, like property management, like mowing your lawn, because your job is to go raise capital. Like that's tens and thousands of dollars an hour of work per hour work.
That's such a big thing. When people gasp, but I say stop doing your $15 an hour jobs.
Yeah.
And then the people that are doing the self-management tasks are going,
Yeah.
But it's true. It's very true. So wow,
it's true.
Thank you for sharing that story. That's an awesome story. And Erwin, let's think about this for a second. You have not only learned that lesson your dad taught you, you're actually taking it the next level. Do you know that? You're now taking it to the point where you're not exchanging time for money. You're actually having your money start making money, right?
Yeah,
so you're now not you're not having to work for it now. You're not having to trade those hours for dollars anymore. You're now starting to even lever it to the next level. So give yourself one of these little pats on the back. You took Dad's lesson and you're now taking it to the next level, and you're sharing that with other people.
Yeah. And I would encourage everyone to have those conversations with their friends. Because for me, one of the biggest aha moments was that I was better off from what I considered limited teachings than many of my peers were. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But, by and large, when we've had it pretty good though, right? We've had it, we've had it pretty good compared to our parents and our grandparents and people if they had to immigrate into a country. I thank my lucky stars every day that how amazing this beautiful country is of Canada, and how many opportunities that we have. I know it's messed up, and we got always something to gripe about. Holy moly, the stuff that we're griping about in another country in this world would be sitting there going, geez, I'd love to have that problem. Right. So, I
made it a thing where I will not complain about the heat of the summer, because I despise the cold so much. Now, in turn, I've made it a thing. I won't complain about this country, because my great uncle was the one who got us into Canada. And how did he get us into Canada? He worked on the railroad. He paid the Chinese head tax to stay. Like, one of the greatest black eyes of racism on this country was what he had to go through in order to be the bridge for the rest of my family to come.
Wow.
Right. So I will always be grateful for him, and I will always honor his memory. Right.
Well, have you ever gone through, and I say this because I'm from Saskatchewan, and there's this wonderful museum in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. It talks about it's the underground caverns and the whole railway of doing it. If you ever get a chance to go see it, it's fascinating to go see that. It's frightening and sad at the same time, but it's fascinating to see the underground caverns where people were living at these times and being hidden away from everybody else. But the railroad was built on their backs, in essence, was carved with their carcasses. Pardon the graphic nature of that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And my family evaded into communist country.
Yeah.
So when people talk about Canada's becoming communist, yeah, I'm not sure what their context is compared to what my grandparents went through.
Right. Yeah, and then at the same time, so you're one of the last people still left in Ontario and haven't moved to Florida yet, have you?
Like straight up, Like because of the color of my skin, I think that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't feel as comfortable down there, right? And that's one of the reality of things. I love being Canadian. Like a friend of mine has is one of the most kindest hearted people. Him and his wife are Jewish. They adopted 3 kids from Africa, right? They do a lot of most of his businesses in the States, but the idea of moving to the States is not an option for his family, right? So grateful to be Canadian.
Yes, we maybe should dub in the "O Canada" national anthem right now. And if some of our biggest things we have to complain about is, I'm not even going to go there. This could go down a completely different path, which we don't want to go. But let's suffice it to say we are blessed. We are truly blessed to be Canadian. And right now, with everything that's going on in the world, I think being a Canadian is going to get even more favorable as a safe place to come, as a safe place for food, fuel, fertilizer, and fresh water and forestry. All the things that are going to start with F. Canada
and jobs.
And jobs, absolutely. Canada is going to be very in vogue again, upcoming, right? If we just need to just not be shy about offering to the world market what we have available in abundance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get off.
And we need people to fill jobs.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. I was just had a conversation with a young fellow the other day, and I said, man, if you wanted to guarantee yourself a job and a career for the next 30, 40 years, get into some kind of a trade, get into be a carpenter, a plumber, electrician. We need houses in this country, and there's going to be a housing boom like we probably haven't seen for a long time. If we can just kind of get it figured out and remove some of the red tape and get us building some houses, right?
Yeah.
Well, what are you guys short? What was the stat I saw you're short in Southern Ontario? Is it like something like 1 million houses or something like that?
I don't even know. The number is so big.
Yeah.
The number is so big, it's hard to wrap your head around, right? And the other number that's huge is there's 1 million job vacancies in Canada and growing, right? Like, so I think everyone should understand that if there's 1 million job vacancies, it means our economy isn't operating at its optimum.
Yep.
Right. So what are we doing about it? So we're not having enough babies. Yep. That'll take a long time to have a baby today and have a productive employed worker. The boomers are retiring, hence the need for immigration. And those immigrants are going to need somewhere to live.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, I know the unpopular thing, and maybe the right answer is potentially cut off some benefits and have people go back to work again. I know that might be the unpopular thing, but it's probably the right answer, or one of the right. Sometimes a complex problem can't be just solved with one simple solution. It's very nuanced, and let's put it this way: I especially these last 2 years, I would guess probably the worst thing to do right now would be a politician. Honest to goodness.
Oh my! What a tough job they have.
No matter what you did, it was wrong. No matter what you didn't do was wrong, and everybody had time and keyboards, and everybody had and everything you did was not good enough, or not fast enough, or not high enough, or nobody was happy. It's almost like being a property management company. Right? Everybody's unhappy from both sides, right?
Yeah, and there's 2 in our area that just closed their doors. So, man.
You just had a guest on your show, wasn't it? Someone who was told some, hair-raising stories of property management there, wasn't it?
Did you listen to that one?
I have not. I saw the tease of it. I haven't had a chance to dive into it. There's just so many podcasts out there. My goodness, everybody and their dog has a podcast now. The only 2 that people should listen to are the 2 people talking here today, right?
I was actually worried about the pandemic. Like before the pandemic, a lot of people listen to podcasts on their commute.
Yeah.
Right. And then when we entered the pandemic, people aren't commuting anymore. So I was surprised to see our stats actually continue to go up. So yeah, I'm not really sure how to explain that.
Do you mind sharing? Are you up on your stats? Do you know, like, and I'm only asking for, somebody who has a fairly new podcast. However, we published 100 episodes, our 100th episode this week.
Congratulations.
And
that was a fast way to 100.
It was not quite, it was under 2 years. So 2 years, it'll be July. And I heard a stat that most podcasts quit after 7 episodes of them creating it. And most, like 87% of podcasts only get less than 300 downloads per episode. So do you know your stats? What do you get per episode, give or take, for downloads?
I don't want to scare people. So I'll gladly tell you in private. I don't want to scare people. So by scaring people, I mean when guests come on my show, it's the same fear that they have. The fear that they experience is the same as public speaking. So that's why it became like a running joke on my show that no one listens. It's only like 12. I started off by saying only to like 12 people listen. So just doesn't matter what you say, no one's listening.
So suffice it to say it's more than 300 and it's less than Joe Rogan's 111 million. So somewhere in between there?
Correct. And the more important statistic is I had someone audit our show. Yeah. An expensive podcast producer audit my show.
Is it Jay?
Yeah. And one of the things that came out was I didn't know, because I didn't know how to run my stats, was our average listen time is actually over 45 minutes. And then this podcast producer said, your listen time is more than 2 or 3 times my clients who are publicly traded companies. So that was like, oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Because I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's good to know. I know when I talked to Jay, he took a look at mine and this was fairly early. I think the stat at the time, which I can't find it anymore, they used to track average listen time per device over a 2-month window. And I was 3 hours and 17 minutes over a 2-month window. Now, I can't find that stat anymore, and I wonder if it's now broken down into average time per device per episode, maybe, or something now. So, So what did you learn about the process? What have you learned about, how long has it been? How many episodes has it been, my friend?
Been podcasting since 2016.
Wow.
And pretty regular 1 episode per week, almost that entire time. What have I learned? I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot of people won't share. A lot of people won't share where they're weak. You and I have both seen a lot of companies that have scaled up really quickly, collapse really quickly, and they don't talk about those things. A lot of people. So I'll get to the positive in a bit. There's a lot of influencers who are out there who don't do good work, right? It's kind of funny because like myself and my team are in this business. So for example, when we go see one of their properties, one of these influencers, like, oh, the workmanship's not what I expected, right? Like corners are cut, things are hidden, like things were deliberately hidden. For example, someone would cap a window, for example. Say it's rot, but when they pull the capping off, like the window is wood and rotted, right? You know what I mean? It'd be stuff like that. And people don't talk about that on Instagram.
Yeah, and I hate. I don't mean to be a bearer of bad news, but if a market ever had a slowdown or even just a pause for a little bit, some of those deferred maintenance that have been swept under the rug for all those years, if you can't just keep refinancing something that's gone up $100,000 a month, those are very rough times. And ask me how I know that.
Yeah. No, those will be bad days. And, like that Warren Buffett quote, Don used to say it all the time too. When the tide goes out, you'll find out who's swimming naked.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and there's been some collapses of very large scale real estate businesses. And it's, don't be the bearer of bad news. It's why the lesson on my show has been consistently, own your own property yourself. Yep. Right. There's lots of good passive investments out there too. I do a lot of them myself, but I only do what I'm willing to lose. but all my major investments are properties that I own in my own name or my corporation that I control.
What have been
In
some
an
of
area
the
that I know very, very, very well.
you know your lane, right? And you're
Yeah.
one of the strongest swimmers around, right? By
Yeah.
design.
Yeah,
So,
it is by design because
yeah.
it is my family's almost entire net worth. So you better believe I know a lot about my investments. I know the streets. No one's pulling the wool over my eyes on what renovations cost or if the certain street is any good, right? And yeah, and versus I see a collapse of a company in the middle of the country, and the commonalities of the problems are the same, right? Some real estate experts that they used on their team were likely compromised. They were potentially paid off in order to be unethical and immoral in their business dealings. And then what did the investor do? They just believed them, right? Right.
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack there for another day too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the truth about real estate. Not everyone's going to make money. So if someone doesn't make money in this market, something went wrong.
Right.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing is this market is also very subjective too. Like there's real estate is extremely hyper local. Like there are markets that are absolutely on fire that hotter than a pistol, and then there's some that are in the deep freeze in some cases. But by and large, this is probably one of the first times I've seen in 20 plus years of doing this. By and large, everything's fire at the moment. Like it truly is. It's like woo-wee, hot, right? Even the ones that were slow are now getting hot, and there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to cool them down a little bit. But be careful. Sometimes the medicine of cooling things down, the pendulum can swing the other way pretty quickly, and I know that as well. So
absolutely, and that's why I'm trying to raise cash at this moment. Right. The other great Warren Buffett quote is to be cautious when others are being greedy. I'd say people are getting pretty greedy in real estate right now. And be fearful. Yeah. And then be greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah. When I start hearing people, all they talk about is gains, appreciations. They don't talk about cash flows. They don't talk about operations. They don't talk about all that. They talk about all they do is refi, pull out borrowed money, live off of borrowed money. They're quitting their jobs. And once I start hearing all those things, and the reason why I'm cautious when I start hearing all this thing, because I said every one of those things. I made every one of those mistakes. I retired my wife from her job way too soon because the market was going up. It was like the analogy I used, the market was like a weekend in Vegas, right? It was like a bender in Vegas and everything else was, like that. All of a sudden you come back from Vegas and, oh, geez, now you're hungover, right? It's the hangover after. And it's caused a lot of pain for a lot of people that bought a lot of properties at a high price. And, 15 years later, the value of the place is not what you bought it for, right? That happens. And that happens in large cities that if somebody says that it will not happen in their market, I just say, okay, tell me how that works out for you. Let's talk in a few more years, right? Because it happens. Cycles happen. Right.
Yeah. And I'm concerned about having another 2017 like in Ontario. And I'm talking to all my clients about it, my team about it. If your plan is to sell in the next 12 months, I'd be doing it right now. Yeah. But yeah, long-term fundamentals are still strong.
Yep.
Well, it won't be as crazy as it used to be.
The conversation I had with Ben Rabideau just recently, he said, and I asked him what keeps him up at night. Like, what's the concern that he has that keeps him awake? And he said, one of the concerns are for him, and guys, if you want to go back, you can listen to that whole episode, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. The concern he had was if somebody is buying something and they went into a bidding war and they had to pay $400,000 over list and it's closing in, say, 6 months, they're hoping that the appraisal value will come in 6 months. What if that appraised value doesn't come in at that time and you can't get financing for it and you're scrambling and you don't have the down payment? It won't take too many of those contracts to collapse to have a few things tick into the market and start a fairly painful period for a short period of time. Now, that's on the short-term basis. What are you seeing on a longer-term perspective, Erwin? I know we talked about this a little bit, but what do you see long-term for real estate right now? And what advice are you giving to your clients? And I know you started that with, potentially selling your dogs is a good strategy right now. Not your woof woof pets, but your dog properties. So what advice are you giving people, and what are you seeing in the marketplace, Southern Ontario, in your swim lane?
I have clients, like I said, I have some people who wanted to exit because they want to take some profits on the table to enjoy it. So they're selling, and they followed my advice. Like I said, if your plan was to sell in this year, I'd be doing it now, right? We're already starting to see some softness in the market. And what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the craziest seller market I've ever seen, getting some appraisals done, and I'm going to refining some properties, and I'm going to sit on it. I'm going to sit on that cash, wait for opportunity. I ain't spending it. I ain't trying to live off of it. I'm not spending it, period. Right? It's just to hoard some cash without triggering a sale and having to pay a whole bunch of tax. Because I'm still in this for the long term, like beyond 10 years. Right? So yeah, long-term fundamentals are still fantastic.
Yeah. What would some of those be that you're seeing?
Fundamentals?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but a lot of people want to be around Toronto.
It's a beautiful city.
It's not as nice as where you live, but we have a lot of jobs here.
I'm looking out my window and I see my green grass that needs to be cut and aerated and fertilized here. And we had our bears. We started seeing our bears from hibernation already coming out around here. But anyway, I digress.
I was just chatting with someone about how it'd be a waste. My friend's a vegan, so I was saying, it'd be sorry if you were in Vancouver and couldn't take advantage of all the wonderful foods that you have and the fresh seafood and whatnot. I love BC. BC is my favorite province. If I could live anywhere else, I'd live in Canada. I'd be living in BC.
Yeah.
But
you do know what BC stands for? Do you know what that acronym stands for?
What?
Bring cash.
Yeah.
Erwin, I'm not. It is so expensive. Our gas price is over $2.20 here now.
I got my Tesla coming. It's all good.
There we go.
I made money on my Tesla too because it's gone up like 10 grand in value. Sorry, I digress. Toronto being the economic center of Canada, a lot of great jobs, a lot of great paying jobs. It used to be more affordable than BC.
Yeah, it's now the mantle of the highest price market in the country.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, it surpassed Vancouver just a month ago.
I don't know what people are thinking. We should hype up Vancouver more. It's a beautiful city. Yeah. A beautiful
Well, where are you recommending people out in your neck of woods take a look at? Now, I know you've been Mr. Hamilton forever, but a duplex in Hamilton is between $1 million and $1.2 million now. And does that still make sense? What are you seeing for rents out there? Where do you recommend people buy?
Rents are still high. Like for example, my vacancy, I had 2 vacancies on my main floor, and I rented both for $2,300 for the main floor. And the rents that I replaced, they were paying like $1,700, and those rents were only like 2 years old.
Nice.
So rents have been very kind to us. With the demographic change, a lot of people were moving away from the city. They wanted to be in properties that were terrestrial on land and have backyards. So that's exactly what I've always been investing in. My basements used to be $1,300. The last basement we used to rent legal basements for $1,200. I still have one of those tenants who's actually a nurse in the hospital. So I consider that my good deed. We've never raised her rent. But the last 2 basements that I filled were over $1,700 plus utilities. And then the next leg up, so it's already passed in Toronto, where garden suites will be as of right, as in that people can install garden suites. So for my context, it would be a third apartment on the property, typically in the backyard, as of right, as in your neighbors can't stop you. And I think only within 2-3 years that'll happen in Hamilton, and that alone will just drive up the price of my property, even if I do nothing else. Yeah. Because the precedent was already set in Vancouver when you guys got laneway housing.
Yeah, well, they actually just changed the zone out here in Vancouver. I might get this not 100% correct, but now it's every property in Vancouver potentially can have 6 dwellings on it, 6 properties on it. Now, that's a zoning. Now, the realistic being able to put 6 units on a tiny little postage stamp of a lot is next to impossible. It's it's nice to have the zoning, but if you can't do it, it's irrelevant, right? So typical duplexy property, Hamilton area. What are you looking? You're looking $1 million to 1.2, and you're renting in around the $4,000 mark, give or take.
Roughly, yes.
Okay.
Seeing 1.2 is pretty common in Ontario. Like I have friends in Oshawa, and they were confirming the same thing. 1.2 seemed to be the going rate for a pretty nice duplex, and pretty nice is still starter home. We're still talking about like 800 square foot bungalows, so they weren't like luxury properties. Yeah. But we're starting to see some softness. I saw this week a legal bungalow just went for over $1 million, just over $1 million. So it's like $1,045,000. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Mark. it's like for us who own these things, like, oh, the market's ending, and then for the people, like regular people, like, good Lord, that's a lot of money. And it is a lot of money.
Well, I just helped an Ontario investor get into a property in Edmonton for it was just over 1.1 million for a 4-plex that rents for $6,300 a month.
Is that new construction or is that
brand new? It's an infill. It's a brand new infill product. So I mean, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying, just for perspective, for the same type of a price point, you're getting $2,000 more in income. And my simple Saskatchewan brain 6th grade education is if you get $2,000 more income, it probably has a better chance of cash flowing.
Yes, I agree. And then my simple laziness is I won't get on a plane to go look at property.
I hear you.
Just invest in what I know.
Yep, I hear you.
Once my credit dries up, then we'll just use capital to build garden houses, and I know it's not, some people won't be interested, but I enjoy being part of the solution and creating more housing supply while also making some money at it. Numbers today are it's around $200,000 to build a garden suite, and then I'll increase my cash flow by about $1,000 per property per month.
Right.
So,
So if you're looking at so 200 to cost. So if you have to buy something, and let's say you buy something, I have some clients that are out your way, and they're buying it, they're into it. So let's say it's renovated, it's 1.1 million. You put another 200 into it, you're at 1.3. What are I know it's still so early, and I probably should have Andy Tran on here. What are those valuing for right now? Do you know offhand, ballpark?
Doesn't happen yet. No one's building them yet. I have clients that are going through the variance process, so it's still early. And but just like basement suites when they first became legal, like they weren't appraising, right? It took time. So once these things go in motion. So for example, I'm in no hurry to build garden suites. I'd rather buy another house, right? I'm going to continue to because $200,000 for a garden suite, that's pretty much my down payment on a duplex. So I'm more interested in acquiring more land, and also once the financing gets easier, for example, once I can get a construction loan for a garden suite, that would make that opportunity a lot more attractive.
Yeah, that's what a lot of our clients are doing is they're find the infill lot, they're getting the construction financing on it, and essentially then they're building, whether it's a side-by-side with suites, 4 units, or even in sometimes we call them 3-house combos, which you guys are talking with the garden suites. And then when it comes time to get a completion mortgage on it, the valuations have gone up significantly that they're getting into it for less than 20% after it's all said and done. And I'm calling it the new construction BRRRR, if you will, right? As opposed to taking old and renovating, you're taking a piece of land and building up and optimizing the land on it right now. So, so that's what I have. And I have some clients that are out in the St. Catharines area that are doing those things right now, that are finding houses that with suites with enough land to put a garden suite on. And they're just kind of going through the process to get the variances, to get the plans, to determine whether it makes sense to build it or not. Right.
Yeah.
But
I like these people. They're going to pave the path for me.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is, and it's like I said to one of my clients, I said, who knows what these things are going to be valued at? If you're into it for 1.3, I would hope that it's going to be a 1.5 or, give or take, because then it makes sense for you to do that. But as they said, it goes, the reason why we're really doing that is to get the additional rent out of the garden suite. Now, what are those things renting for? Do you know offhand, ballpark?
A garden suite, because it's 2-bedroom. Like again, I get 2-bedroom. My 2-bedroom basement's all rent for 17. So if you're on grade in a garden suite, I'd imagine you should be able to get more.
Yeah. So if you're taking your duplexes from 4 up to a 3 unit at 57, and you're adding a 200,000, that those start making sense again. They've essentially, by a zoning change and a change of use of the land, they've added more opportunities for investors to get going again.
And I think also, like, your clients, they have you as a coach. Well, I think a lot of them are looking for to be able to retire and give up their day jobs. Most of my clientele they're doing real estate as a side hustle, so it's very different. And for example, people ask me all the time, why aren't you investing in Alberta for more cash flow? And my explanation is, my businesses provide me cash flow. I enjoy them, so my goals are different, right? And I've been enjoying the appreciation as well.
No, 100%. Well, I very clearly have stated that I made a big mistake back in 2006, 2007, 2008 in Alberta, where I absolutely doubled down on my portfolio and probably added another 80 units to my portfolio at an absolute peak, where I should have been divesting of some of those properties, the really bad properties, the really low performers, the ones that had deferred maintenance. I should have divested from that and invested more into Ontario and British Columbia. We'd be our bank account would be a lot different if that was the case, if I had just gone back in time to tell me that little piece of advice that I've just shared today. But you know what? Hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it, Erwin?
And exactly, absolutely true. I've spoken to many very successful entrepreneurs, and in confidence, like they ask me serious questions around real estate.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty open about it. I have clients who do real estate as a side hustle who have significantly greater net worth than they do. And it is very different to have a job than it is to run a business.
Yep.
The risks are different. The stresses are different. Can you guess which is easier?
I hear you. One's a lot more active. One's a lot more passive. And I term it as, I break it into build wealth versus make money. And you should have different strategies for each. MMBW. There's got to be make money strategies and there's got to be build wealth strategies. And in some cases, that's one of the challenges with buy and hold real estate, is it doesn't create enough spendable cash to be able to afford your Teslas and your holidays and your jug of milk on the table. But at the same time, over the last 5-10 years in Southern Ontario, it's been one of the greatest wealth generators you could possibly imagine. Like, it's life-changing life-changing wealth in many respects.
My life has absolutely changed.
Yeah.
Right? You asked me to share stories I haven't shared.
Please.
My daughter's house is one of these duplexes that's worth a ridiculous amount of money, right? I bought it.
So just for context, your daughter, who is how old now?
My daughter's now 8.
8, okay. So just for context for everybody listening.
I bought her a house when she was 3 months old as her RESP. I paid around $250 for it, right? I've had to put in over $100,000 because twice it had to be renovated. Once as a student rental, and then again to be legally duplexed, right? And so I have a small mortgage, and the house is worth over $1 million. So simple math, people can have a pretty good idea what my daughter's net worth is.
Yeah.
How does that compare to the average Canadian? Right? I know it doesn't cash flow much because we still have the same tenants. So, I have a single mom with 4 kids, and her mom's in the basement, the nurse that I mentioned earlier. And the poor mom was one of these nurses that got reallocated into one of the long-term care homes. And one of these for people who don't think COVID's real, My tenant told me she saw the long-term care home lose half of their residents to COVID, right? So that's her first-hand account. There's some people that don't believe it's real. That's okay. Everyone can make their own decision what's real or not. And so to me, she's a hero. She doesn't need me to ever raise the rent.
Yep.
Neither of them do, because I don't need
Yep.
the money, right? I'm not in this for I don't need the cash flow, especially not from these people.
Yep.
Right. But anyways, that's my daughter's house.
Yep.
And her, again, my point was being like her net worth is higher than some of these really successful entrepreneurs I know. And then she's probably in the top 20% for net worth as a Canadian at 8 years old.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, I remember when you talked about that right at the beginning as you were buying your kids. I think you called it an education fund. Was it an education fund or was it a retirement fund? What was it? Essentially, the plan was to buy the kids each a property that when they became of age, they would have more choices of where they could do or not do for schooling.
That sounds much better than what my real problem was. Because what's made me do okay in life is I'm a problem solver. So what's the problem? My daughter will eventually, I expect her to go to university, right? One that provides taking a program that will have return, preferably. But anyways, and then I Googled how much does it cost to go to university, right? And so I found an article in the Globe and Mail based on inflation rates. It was saying when she goes, by the time she's 18, tuition for undergraduate alone will be $70,000. So here's my problem. How will I come up with $70,000 after tax money to save for this, right? And then here's my problem. I don't want to add years to my retirement age. So let's find an investment that will pay for this future ticking time bomb of 70 grand just for undergrad alone. And what if all these things, all these dreams and hopes I have for my kids, what if they want to become an Olympian? I don't think that's cheap. My understanding is that's not cheap.
Well, there's
no money in it.
Lots of stories of Olympians that just couldn't even afford to send over their coaches or they don't pay any of them anything. And they just had to actually quit the sport because they just couldn't afford to keep doing it. Right.
And I have personal friends who have that situation. Yep. And I made the decision that will not be my child. Right. That will not be my child who can't go to afford a university. Right. It will not be my child that has to choose between getting a part-time job or full-time job or going to medical school, as an example. If her hopes and her dreams are to go to medical school, she will go to medical school. The decision will not be coming down to money, right? That's just how I operate.
Wow. Woo-wee. Woo-wee. Woo. And always when the fire comes, what comes next? Obviously, a bomb is dropped. So good for you for Good for you for taking a stand, Erwin. And it's just, that doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. It's just kind of the guy you are.
That's all it is. I have a problem. I need a solution.
Yeah.
Right.
We could go so many different directions on pivoting this conversation from here. Okay. So here's the conversation I want to go. It's my show and I want to find out about this. What does your business look like now, Erwin? I know you started out as a realtor. You niched yourself as Mr. Hamilton, and I'm quite surprised that more people haven't become Mr. Kitchener or Mrs. St. John or Mrs. Edmonton or Mr. Calgary. I'm surprised more people haven't done that because it's been done very well for you. Of who's the expert in Hamilton in this room? Oh, how about Mr. Hamilton? How about the guy that's wearing the Hamilton Tiger Cat jersey for the same jersey for the last 20 years, right? Hope you watched it. Yeah. So what does your business look like? You have some properties, you have a brokerage, you have coaches, you have agents, you have a seminar business, you have a stock hacking portfolio, you have all these kind of things. Give the listeners maybe a context about what does your business look like right now?
So I got licensed in real estate in 2008. So it all started with the business just started with, I was already a real estate investor. I was a member of RAIN, and I had a portfolio of about 5-6 properties at the time. And then meeting people at RAIN, making good friends there, Andy Tran being an example. He knew I was an agent, and then he asked, and not just him, but others were like, I'd like to invest like you invest. Like, oh, that's easy, right? I know what I'd buy. To me, it was a no-brainer to help people buy what I would buy. That's a really easy business model. And that's how it all started. It was just to help people build wealth in what I considered the most pragmatic, repeatable, ethically, morally correct way to do it, right? So that's how the business started. And then I got busy. My clients are very, very happy people and successful.
Some real estate author and successful, the OG of Canadian education and real estate went on to George Stroumboulopoulos and said, "Oh, Hamilton's the place to be out there," and people started laughing. Then all of a sudden, everybody's going, "Oh, Hamilton." Yeah. Who's the Hamilton expert out here, right?
Yeah. And then just a sidebar for anyone who's a realtor. Being someone who studied business, understand there was a niche. There was no one in my market who focused just 100% on investors, who actually spoke their language in terms of cash flow and economic fundamentals and transportation improvements, right? So that's why I got into the business. The business today is way, way harder, right? Because when I started, I wanted to be the top of mind. Who is the realtor in Hamilton? Today, people can, I can probably take 30 seconds and come up with 10 names. Right. It's a very different market now. And so again, the business just started because I wanted to help people. And then it's just continued since then. Yep. So one of my clients, for example, he wanted to start a property management business. And I'm like, totally, you're crazy. Come work. You're smart. Come get your license and work with me. And he did. And then we kept going because we kept doing busy. We kept getting referrals. Nice thing about working with investors is they buy multiple properties. So we're just busy. And then the business grew. And I now have 6 full-time agents on the team. So I'm no longer on the ground. So if anyone wants to work with my team, for example, they work with one of my agents. What we do is we're really like a consulting coaching business. We will help people execute the deal, right? Help them, guide them through the process of being renovated. We're all being investors ourselves. We take our clients and we drop them into our ecosystem. Here's my fence guy. Here's my plumber. Here's my contractor. Here's my basement guy, right? So the whole objective of the business is to make the learning curve go as easy as possible, right? Because if you're using the same property manager I'm using, you're a lot likely to have tenant problems, like I don't, right? Or if you use the same home inspector that I do, then they don't care what my opinion is. They will tell my client what's what, right? So they'll keep them safe for most problems, right? And then Sherry, my wife, was on the team as well. She quit her accounting job to join my team as realtor, and then she got pregnant, and then I didn't want her on the road anymore.
She just accidentally got pregnant, Erwin, right? You didn't have anything to do with that.
We started a family, and then the realtor hours. Straight honestly, it's not great, right? Yep. My team is expected to work 3 nights a week plus 1 weekend, right? So not many people are willing to do it. Hence, realtors make more money than most people. Anyways, that wasn't what I wanted for the mother of our children. I said, hey, we have all these clients that need accounting services, right? Like, now we get you, so that allow you to work a more regular 9 to 5, get you off the road. And that's turned into a very significant business. I don't even know how, outside my office window, there's about at least 30 staff out there for the accounting business. So what started with, you're fired from the realtor team to now a multi-million-dollar accounting business.
Wow, that's awesome. And I know there's no competition there or anything about who's got the bigger database of names and who's got more. Yeah. I know there's no competition there. Anyway.
There's no competition.
Yeah, there's no competition.
A few years ago there was.
Yeah, she just blows me away. There's definitely no competition.
Yeah, she blows me away. She blows most people away. When she's a guest on people's shows, and that's why, to help you out.
Yeah. Oh, I've been
pushing her on you.
She is my go-to when I need anything. Let's put it this way. Most real estate entrepreneurs are creative deal makers, and they're movers and shakers, and accounting and books and business operations is an afterthought. Oh, don't bore me with those details.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if you don't bore yourself and have somebody take care of those details, your business will be sunk very quickly.
Absolutely. Your
And that's
financing will dry up quickly if you don't have your
yes,
books in order.
exactly. So that's what you have to have the professionals on your team to be able to do. If you can't do it or you don't want to do it, you need an expert on your team to be able to do it, right? To be able to do that work for you.
And it's just
Okay, go ahead.
to that. Nice thing about my wife's accounting business is almost all the partners are real estate investors themselves. So they understand the language for financing as well. Like find me an accountant who does that, right? Someone
Yep.
who can talk to your mortgage person.
Yep.
Because like back in the day when we were talking about accountants, right? Like that's your outsourced CFO of your company, right? CFO's job is not just to do your accounting; it's also to deal with your financing.
Yep.
Right? So most accountants aren't investors, right?
Well,
So
that's one of the things I love about with what Cherry does, and no, we should also be the presidents of the Cherry Chan fan club. Is she puts out some great content on how to get financing, how to structure your corporations to get more financing, to bust through that 5 mortgage myth rule, or how do you handle the capital gains as a real estate investor to optimize, like what are the 5 ways to 5 tips and strategies and how to maximize or I should say minimize your capital gains, right? And every time I've ever asked her, she's also always very polite and telling me, Russell, that's you can't do that.
yeah,
Well, what about this? What about this? Russell, you can't do that.
yeah. There's way more things we can't do. And
Yeah.
also, I make the joke that I've stress test Cherry already
Nice.
before any of you guys can ask her
Yeah.
something she hasn't heard before.
Okay, so back to your business, Erwin. It is a real estate brokerage. You have coaches. You also put on an event. You have a membership program. You have a stock hacker training program. You do stock like what? Maybe here's a better question. What do you like the best out of it, and what do you focus the majority of your time on out of your business?
Good question. So just to clarify the brokerage part, I'm
Yeah.
still an agent of Rockstar Real Estate, so I
Okay.
still work with Tom and Nick.
So you're like a sub broker, would that be the term, or just you're just an
I want to
agent
broker
under
license.
their brokerage, and you have agents that kind of flow through you?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I don't want as someone who doesn't like admin, I don't want to be a broker of anything.
Well, yeah, as once you have your own brokerage, there's an entire different fiduciary duty of reporting and a compliance and all those kind of things. You don't have to report to the board necessarily.
And
Right.
have a trust account, and it's just all this other admin and costs. Not interested. So to answer your question, I don't mean to dodge it. It's like when people say, "Oh, where should I focus my time in investing?" Like my honest answer is you have to do everything, right? It's like, Russell, what investments don't you do? Because you probably have a little bit of everything.
Well,
Right.
I've tried a lot of things. Well, there's some things I don't do, but I'm open to it. I'm open to learning and hearing about them in many respects. Like one of the things I was not open to hearing about Airbnb until recently, and I have some of my clients that are doing Airbnb, and I'm going, holy moly! I go, teach me, share with you. You coach me on how to do that, especially if you can automate it and you don't have to work it. If you can automate it and you don't have to work at it, I'm
Yeah, good
all
luck.
ears. Or like my conversation I just had with Manny just recently, and after that, I was just like, holy moly, flipping. How
Yeah.
how amazing is he doing right now? Wow.
Oh, he's killing it. He's killing it. So just take a step back. I'm not entirely driven by money. There's a lot of things I could be doing that makes a lot more money than I do. One of the things I've come across in my journey is I've been looking. One of the gaps for my clients is financial planning. So I've always been on the lookout for financial planners, right? People that I can refer my clients to. And in my research, in talking to financial planners, like getting introductions, referrals, most of them are focused on high net worth individuals. So, and not just that, one of them was kind enough to say, if we like you, our minimum will be $100,000 investment, as in like we'll invest that for you, but there has to be a path for that that 100,000 to become $1 million, right? So that doesn't solve the solution for my clientele. So there's basically no financial planners out there that will help the people I want to help, the people who don't have $1 million investable assets outside of real estate. So like Cherry and I have always been on this mission to help people who aren't born into prestige, right? And that's just what we do. So like all our businesses are like that. Like I remember someone was teaching about joint venture, right? Joint venturing. They were saying what they're teaching was, don't joint venture with someone. They were at a level. They were successful people, but I think that what they're teaching was, don't joint venture with someone who can't do at least 3 properties, right? Like that's fine. Like you run your business the way you want. My real estate business, we will happily work with the client who can only buy 1 investment property. Happily. Do we appreciate the ones that can buy 5 to 10 properties? Absolutely. But who can we move the needle for the most? Right? The one who can only do 1 property at a time. Right? So we do 1 property, 3-5 years. Hopefully we can do another one. Right?
Yep.
So
wow.
That's just the way we roll.
So really, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, often business is about just professional problem solving. And you find a need and a gap in the market, and you provide services to help your clients fulfill upon their dreams, fulfill upon their aspirations, fulfill upon their financial freedoms, fulfill upon many of their freedoms, right? And help that out. That's just what business is all about, is it not, Erwin?
It is, but in my experience, a lot of businesses will focus on people who have a lot more. Versus, we've made the conscious decision, and this is part of working on this team, is this is bigger than the job, right? What we do for our clients is bigger than us making money, bigger than them making money. Because if it was just about that, this would be a new construction condo business, right? If our focus is on making money in real estate as a realtor, we would sell new construction condos because they don't have supply issues like we have supply issues in selling property.
Right.
Right.
Good. I love your perspective on that. Now, I had an entire line of question to have about the stock hacking and the stock trading you do, but but holy moly, that could probably be another episode, could it not?
It could.
So let me I'll ask a couple simple questions though, because I'm simple. I'm not the expert by any way, shape, or the imagination. As a matter of fact, with a lot of my clients, who are also a lot of your clients, I asked them, well, teach me, share with me what you're doing, and share with me what this is, and talk to me about this whole, what the heck is a Dogecoin and stuff like that.
Oh man,
I'm teasing. I'm joking.
Going from a real estate conversation to Dogecoin. We need to have a conversation with the hard asset.
Okay, I agree. How are real estate investors kind of dovetailing them together, and do they dovetail nicely with the stock trading, the options trading, and real estate investing at the same time? How are some of your most successful clients doing both?
So before we start recording, we didn't actually know this, but around 70% of my audience and Cherry's audience are actually interested in stocks. And my experience was, no one, even informal, like I went to business school. No one actually ever taught us how to make money in stocks. They just taught you like theories and textbook stuff, right? And now knowing a little bit more, and also again, the problem for many is inability to cash flow with real estate, especially in Southwestern Ontario. And a lot of people don't have the down payment, right? Versus we were able to teach people with as little as $10,000 and how to cash flow. So Joel, for example, one of our employees, was for a string of months, he was cash flowing $400 with a $10,000 bankroll, right? So Stock Hacker Academy is a lot of things. I actually liken it to a lot like you and Don, for example. Our instructors are 2 best-selling authors, right? One is Derek Foster. He's a 6-time best-selling author. He retired at the age of 32. That might be someone I want to learn from. So we hired him to help us teach the course. So his focus is on his investment focus, mainly on dividend-paying stocks and buying them when the stock is way beaten up. Kind of like right now. Lots of great stocks that are beaten up right now. And then to bring it back to real estate. So 2 of my favorite stocks are real estate based. We talked about one of them. Do you remember which one? Airbnb.
Yes. Okay.
Right. With the world reopening, all these people who've been cooped up want to travel.
Yep. And that's why I've been telling some of my clients to pivot into even in a short-term strategy, do some Airbnb and to take advantage of that, depending on the market conditions, rules, stuff like that.
And if you're ambitious, it works. If you're lazy like me, my Airbnb didn't work out. It was too much work. Yep. I sold it. I actually didn't make that much money because on that property, I actually made more money stock hacking the Airbnb stock than being an owner operator of Airbnb. Now, I'm sure you have clients, and I have friends who are very successful Airbnb investors. Totally cool for them. It's just not in my wheelhouse to be an Airbnb host.
Yep.
So I prefer to invest in the company Airbnb because based on economic fundamentals, right? People don't want to buy stuff anymore right now. This pendulum has swung the other way. People want experiences and travel. How many people do you know? If you go on the streets of Vancouver, how many people can you find who don't know what an Airbnb is, who've never stayed at an Airbnb, who don't have plans to stay at an Airbnb in the next 3 years?
Oh, it's ubiquitous right now. Everybody, yeah.
It's crazy. And also just talk to my friends, like talking to the same friends that you have. Hey, how's your Airbnb doing? Oh my God, I'm so booked up. I keep raising my rates and people keep booking them.
Yeah.
That might be a good business to invest in.
I know one of the reasons why people in Southern Ontario did a lot of Airbnb was really, really popular was because you didn't have the residential tenancy board rules were a lot different on a short-term rental than they were on a long-term.
And we have your credit card. If you do any damage, I'm going to bill it to your credit card.
Yeah.
Good luck with that for our tenant.
Yeah.
And the tenant app, can you just fill out your credit card number, please?
Yeah. No, I firmly believe that people are going to the human animal is going to start moving around again. And it's funny, I saw a cute little meme is like, COVID, everybody's cooped up. Once COVID's over, I'm going to start traveling again. Gas prices, hold my beer. Right?
Yeah. Gas prices.
Wow, with your Tesla there, Erwin, as long as you don't have to drive, a long distance, and just keep that generator in the back, and you're good to go, right?
Yeah, but you're a good point. You don't have to fly these days, and actually, I'm not feeling the appetite to fly. Just I don't like all the restrictions. Like I think they're fine for people's safety. I just don't want to have to go through it myself with my young kids. So like Cherry and I are still talking about staycationing in Ontario for the foreseeable future. So we'll go rent an Airbnb in cottage country, pay them a lot of money. Yes, it's going to cost me gas to go there, but driving still won't be as bad as flying in terms of costs.
Nope.
Yeah. And then another real estate play in stock hacking that I love is I try to keep how much I use their services to a minimum. Services as in food. If you can call it food, it's McDonald's. I forget the number of how much real estate they own. I think they own I forget the number right now. I think it's like 70 billion or something like that. They own a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
Right. And I hear that's a good investment, right?
From time to time, yes.
From time. And if you look what real estate McDonald's have, in my experience, they have wonderful real estate, right? And they rent out that real estate to the franchisees. I think that's the right term, to whoever owns the business and building that's on their real estate.
Yep.
And they collect something like $7 billion in rent a year.
Wow.
Right.
And just think about that as
a real estate company.
Yeah, think about that as a business model. That let's say the restaurant business starts tanking, or the restaurant business goes out of vogue, and everybody wants to start eating healthier and stuff like. Let's say that happens. Oh well, we'll just now start selling our assets, which are some of the most prime pieces of real estate to whatever, and just think about it as a backstop. You're good to go on both directions.
Yeah. That's a brilliant business, and they move with the times, right? Yep. They have I think they have grilled chicken sandwiches now. Yep. That's still available with French fries, but you can get a salad. You can get a salad if you want.
Yeah.
Right. And it pays like a 2.5% dividend these days. Like that's more cash on cash return than a lot of real estate investors get, especially these condo buyers. Yep. That's more 2.5% more than they get.
Nice. What's your take on energy at the moment? There's a hot one.
Yeah,
I should have a little button that says "hot take," right? Or we should have insiders secrets here, right? So
The better question is, when are we going to get some pipelines built in Canada?
Whoa, what the? What? Hang on, what the? Jesus, did I hear that from somebody from Eastern Canada talking about wanting to build a pipeline?
People. I find too many are the way that people are busy, so they don't have time to have complete context of problems, right, and solutions. If I walked around Toronto and I asked, "Can you remember when oil was great? Like when oil was high? Do you remember how much we got in transfer payments from the West to Ontario? Right? Do you remember we got all that money to pay for our healthcare and education? Did you mind it back then? Right? Do you think our education and healthcare system could use some money? Right? Yeah. Or we can buy oil from Saudi. We can buy from Trump's America. We can buy from Russians. Oh, that's a better idea than buying oil from the West, because it's going to be. It's like people don't think oil's going to be done in the West no matter what, right? It's like these pipelines don't exist. They're just looking for upgraded pipelines along the same routes that these pipelines already exist. Right?
I have to make sure I clip this video and share this out on every social media channel that I have about Erwin Szeto bullish Canadian oil. I'm having fun with you, Erwin. I'm having fun.
One of my favorite stocks out of the pandemic was Suncor, right? I was literally using Suncor as an example for folks in Stock Hacker Academy. At the time, we're talking about May 2020. So the stock dipped down to under $13 American, right? I don't even know what it is now, but it's probably up about 140, 150% now. And you'd be collecting a 10% dividend now.
Yeah.
Right. How's that for cash?
I know we've had some online conversations. I'll put it at that. And it's been good. It's in high respect that we have, we can have a difference of opinion on things, and we can have very good dialogue on it. And
friendly discourse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a fan of Eric Nuttall and what he's done and some of his work that he's talking about, that most Canadian energy companies are going to be debt-free probably within the next year to year and a half. Well, so
that's not good. Investing.
So what does that mean? That means that they're going to be in a position to pay lots of free cash flow to investors. And that's what he's putting out there, is potentially you're in a generational opportunity right now with Canadian energy companies that are going to spit off an awful lot of free flow cash to its investors.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of like Enbridge as a stock, as a company. Yeah.
We should turn the camera off here and you can give me your real stock picks now, right? So,
I'm pretty comprehensive though too. Yeah. It's like I have leading tech stocks as well.
Yeah.
Right. But people need to stop being binary. Right. You're either with us or against us. Yep. Remember how the rest of the line goes?
Yep.
Only the Sith speak in absolutes. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hang on a sec here. Baby Yoda approves that comment there, Erwin, by the way. Baby Yoda approves. So,
right. People calling people sheeple or something like that. Yeah. Like, come on. We're having a friendly discourse.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you say that. So, I have a question for you, and I know how I haven't handled it as well as I probably should have. And sometimes, pardon the Spider-Man reference here for a second, sometimes with great power comes great responsibility. Now, I know you're in a leadership position and you have a community of people that look up to you, that, take some of your advice. And sometimes some of that advice doesn't turn out the right way.
Right? Oh yeah, I ain't perfect.
How and I've made some terrible market calls. I look back on some of them and I said, you know what, I absolutely pooped the bed on that market call. But at the same time, I also was only sharing things that I was personally doing, so I was right in the same soup as you were. How do you feel sometimes when you make a call on something and it doesn't turn out? Does it weigh on you? How does that feel for you?
Oh, I feel terrible. I'm way too emotionally invested in almost everything I do. Yeah. For example, like working as a realtor with investors, to buy a property, you have to win. So you have to pay more than anyone else was willing to pay. Generally, it comes down to money, right? And every single time, even when I buy my own properties, I'm like, oh, we overpaid. Yeah. I hope this works out.
Well, here's the thing is, I think that's a good thing to have, is that it on some respects, it weighs on you, because that means you care about your clients. If you were just narcissistic and really just look at me, everything I do touches the gold, and we'll just brush those other things aside. I think that would be a lot worse than having a little bit of sleepless nights that you made a bad call on something.
So we talk about property managers, for example. Yeah. I made bad calls on property managers. It's partly the business is so difficult that many don't last, right? So I've had to tell clients, okay, fire that property manager I told you it was good, and hire this one. Yeah. Right. And for my clients who've been with me a long time, I've probably had to tell them to fire that one too, and hire this one. Yeah. Right. So yes, I made bad calls, but I own it and take responsibility and endeavor to never do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't leave my clients high and dry. It's like, this is what we need to do to fix this problem.
Own it. Take responsibility for it, and learn from it and tell people, I messed up, guys. I'm sorry. And here's what I learned from it. And here's what I would do differently next time. Right. Yeah.
And people have to understand, like, no piece of advice is good forever.
Yep.
Right. Trends change. Like I said, like, not all businesses are always successful. Like McDonald's was not always the number one fast food company. Like, look at BlackBerry. They used to be dominant. Things change.
Yeah, and right? How addicted to everybody was to their Crackberry and had Crackberry thumb, right? And is it even still around?
I don't know. I don't know. I thought I heard somewhere they're coming up with a new phone, but right. But they're reinventing themselves, and I've heard good things about their antivirus software. But again, my point is that no piece of advice will be good forever.
Right.
And no one's perfect. Like Warren Buffett, as successful as he's been, he's made mistakes too. Right.
And just don't have the mistakes. Mistakes shouldn't be life sentences. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, like, for example, why we invest in quality. Right. That's why I talk about things like McDonald's or like Apple stock. Right. These things are quality. Things change. My opinion was when I had an iPhone, it's like AirPods, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm not paying over $200 for headphones. My wired headphones are perfectly fine.
Yeah. And how many pairs do you have now?
I have
within your household. Within your household.
No, they're all mine.
Oh, oh, there you go.
Because the damn things, you lose them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luckily, I found them again. That's how I've accumulated 4 pairs. That's over $1,000 of AirPods I've paid to Apple.
Wow. Yeah, I'm embarrassed sometimes to add up all the Apple stuff in our household too, between 5 of us, and it's just like. Yeah, but at the same time, it's good quality stuff that lasts a long time. And I just retired a 15-year-old laptop, 15 years, and it still was working. It finally just kind of crapped out. But how many PCs can people have that are still workable 15 years later, right?
I don't think it happens.
No, yeah, they're disposable, right? Erwin, I know we can go on and on and on, but I want to be respectful. I know you have a massive business, an empire, if you will. The empire, it depends on which side of the empire. Is it on the evil side or the good side, right? In today's day and age, we don't know good up from down and good from bad anymore, do we? But I know in your case, you're always on the good side, right?
We definitely do our best, and we'll own up to mistakes. Yeah. And,
now,
I heard talk about the conference quick.
No, I know. I was just about to say I'm going to. So here, Erwin, when we were talking before, I hear a little rumor. This is one of my favorite pictures. I know it's a little blurry here, but this was you and I in front of the wealth hacker event with Grant Cardone. And
Yeah.
what was there? What was the final number? What was it, like 1,500, 1,800? How many people were there?
We sold 1,550 tickets.
Yep.
So there's somewhere just under that, probably in that room. And then I think some people snuck in too. So I don't know.
And there's young Erwin with his new suit there with Grant and Elena there. You got to go down to Florida with Grant there. So I hear a rumor you're having another conference. What's going on there, brother?
Yeah, we decided that we're going to do it again. It kind of upsets my stomach with this, some mandates may come back. Oh boy, I don't know why we're doing this. Because the thing is, we don't need to do this. We honestly don't need to do it. Why we're choosing to do the conference is because it still fits our mission, is to still help everyday Canadians learn about the best practices in building wealth, right? So this is Cherry and I's conference. We are the only investors in this. We're the only organizers. And again, we lost money on the last one. We might lose money on this one again. We likely will lose money on this one again. We'll make some money if people choose to do business with us, but on the event itself, we will lose money.
Yeah,
so,
that's typical. That's a typical model of an event business.
I don't know why anyone does this.
It's extremely expensive way to get clients, but it now can set up business for 10 plus years after, with people doing business with you with a database. It's invaluable for that database that can be collected from that as well.
It can be that,
yeah.
But a gentleman reached out to me because he's writing a book. He's a fireman, and I asked him, like, what inspired you to do this? He goes, first he jokingly said you. He said, actually, my dad was, because he got bored. He's a farmer and he started flipping houses, and then when his son started showing interest in real estate, he goes, look up Erwin, listen to his podcast. He knows everything. That's what he said. I don't know everything. And then from there, he went to my conference, and he's since bought, and he's since invested in Airbnbs. He's got one in New York, and he's got one in Niagara Falls. But what really, he said, like, thank you for that conference. It really got me going, right? And he's not even a customer of mine. Like, he's never bought anything from me. But that story is just so inspiring, and it really drives me to do what we do.
Yep. When is it happening, Merwin? Can you
November
give
12th?
the date? November 12th,
2022.
2022.
Yeah.
Do you have a headliner that you're bringing in?
We do. We haven't announced it yet. He's signed and everything. We just haven't announced it yet. So it'll be pretty cool.
Whisper. It'll be our secret if you just tell me, Erwin, today.
I think you already know.
Do I?
Maybe you've forgotten. But it's not so much about the headline speaker, because straight honest. When we did the analysis of the last conference that we did with Grant, the vast majority of ticket sales, I don't have the data in front of me, but I think it's over 70, 80%. I think it's over 80%. Over 80% of the people who bought tickets were already in our database. As in, they already knew who we were.
Yep.
They already know who Cherry and I were.
Yep.
They didn't buy, and then the remainder bought because of Grant, which is not a good ROI.
It was a really good celebration and a good party for the community to come together. It had been a while since something like, and thank you for putting on the party and on your dime. And and all somebody had to do, honest to goodness, all somebody had to do was get themselves there, and maybe a plane ticket and a $200 ticket or something, and you got to hang out with a cool party.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I find with the real estate community, we're still a little bit fragmented. Not because anyone doesn't like each other. It's just most people are still more cliquey with whichever community they started with, right? We have like Rich Dad Legacy, we have Keyspire, we have Rain People, we have Rockstar members, for example, right? But because Cherry and I are connected to all of them, they all came together, which was like so beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the only event where they all come together.
Aww.
Right? But you know what I mean? Because
I 100% agree. I 100% concur with that. So,
like, for example, we had Rain friends that went on to Keyspire, for example, but now they're back to see you at my event. You know what I mean? Right?
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, awesome. So, Erwin, you've got all these things. So I'm going to just got some wonderful pictures you've done. Like I shared, the event, you and Grant, you host a wonderful podcast. I picked a good photo of a good podcast episode. I heard on that episode that a guy called Edmonton is going to be the next opportunity market out there. And geez, that was about a year and a half ago or something, wasn't it?
I've sent lots of people to Edmonton.
I know.
I've been like if you want cash flow and you want Alberta, go talk to Jason Russell. Like,
well, thank you.
Why are you talking to other people? If I could buy new construction duplexes and fourplexes, that's all I buy.
Yeah.
Right. It's only possible in your market. Because builders here don't want to do that stuff. They want to build a house. They don't even want to finish the basement.
Well, it's already sold before they even built it.
Exactly.
In many cases, right?
Right. They need to build more houses, not finish basements.
Yeah. You're also very community minded with your philanthropic ventures. You are probably one of the most fun loving guys that I know. And what's this thing here, Erwin? It's a game. It's like with sticks and balls, and you put a little white ball into a hole. What is that thing all about? It's golf, right?
Yeah.
Is there
You're
a
gonna
golf?
beat the crap out of me. I can't play with it. I can't wait to just hang out with you on the course and play though.
Is there a roundup coming for you and I?
Yeah, man. Just let me know when you're in town.
Okay. Well,
let me know
I had an invitation from Manny to go drive some Corvettes and drink beer on his boat, and and hopefully there's maybe a round of golf in there when I come out there next summer.
Let me know. I have some friends that have access to some nice courses.
Nice.
I can call in some favors. I'm sure they want to see you too.
Oh well, it's been too long. I was just sitting there. It's funny how all those memories are popping up on Facebook memories. And it's just like, oh yeah, I remember when we actually used to do that. So I know I would much rather do this in person. I'd much rather have you sitting across from me at the table or across from you at the table, but this is a good second opportunity, a good second best, if you will, opportunity.
Yeah. Can't wait to have you back. We'll host another big meetup at a restaurant like we did the other time.
That was so much fun. So guys, let's
Remember
do it
how many
again.
people cried?
Yeah, let's do it again for sure.
Erwin,
I two things I want to do here before we sign off. Number one is I want to look in the eye here. I wanted to acknowledge you. I wanted to acknowledge who you've become. I remember you way back in the day, the shy kid, the kid that honestly, pardon the saying here, is if you said boo, you would fall over, right? And big glasses, awkward, shy, but you were relentless in your pursuit, relentless in your ambition, and you went after it. You went after it, and who you've become, how you serve, and how you show up in this world is truly inspirational. And I just wanted to offer you. I don't think we have enough that we offer gratitude and appreciation to others. And I just want to offer you some appreciation for what you've done and who you've become and who you help. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for all that, what you've done.
Oh, I'm just going to throw that back in your face, Russell, because, you've inspired so many on your talks from stage. I remember telling you, I think it was probably like my 10th acre. I don't think you were, I remember your JV presentation, for many of us who've been around a while, like that was the best presentation of the weekend, right? It's Russell Westcott's, you wanted to be in the room for Russell's JV presentation. Because
we got to do more of those.
Never got old.
Yeah, we got to do a few more of those. We got to bring the fire back, my friend. Bring the fire back. Woo-wee. Erwin, I always like to ask this last question of all my guests. And one of the last questions I have is, let's say somebody's sitting here and they're listening to this, or they're watching it on YouTube. By all means, please subscribe, podcast and YouTube. And someone's feeling a little bit stuck. Maybe they're just not sure the next step forward. Let's say you had a coffee with that person. What advice would you give that person? And they're feeling just a little bit stuck and they're just unsure what the next step is for them. What advice would you give them?
I have so many thoughts in my head. It's really difficult. First off, hang out with better people.
Yep.
Right. I think everything gets easier when you hang out with people who are doing. And people, it's always been something I've done, is whenever someone has something I want, I'll make the effort to be their friend. Right. And I mean it like, if win friends and influence people, then you'll know how to become someone's friend. And then I'll try to become their friend. Right. by giving them value as well, right? If I want to talk to Russell Westcott, I'll invite him on my podcast, for example, right? I'm not just gonna, Russell, can I buy you a coffee and then pick your brain for 3 hours?
Well, the sad thing is when you and I have the opportunity to talk, we've both been very busy of late. The only time we get a chance to talk and connect is doing a podcast episode. So I've booked yours for about 6 weeks out too. So we'll have another chance to talk again for sure. So,
yeah. But when we're on that golf course, at least stuck together.
Oh, 4.5 hours with Erwin.
6. I need 130 strokes.
Well, truth be told, for the longest time, I had my wife convinced that golf was a 10-hour event. Until one day she came
sober up time.
Until one day she came with me and said, "This doesn't take 10 hours."
This is over up.
Yeah, exactly. What this is only like
golf balls.
This is like 3 hours. What do you do for the rest of the time? Oh,
yeah, that's because you're good.
Yeah, the gig is up. Yeah, I wish. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, we could go on, and I do want to let you go here, Erwin. So thank you very much for that inspirational close. Is hang out with a better community. If you need something, just reach out, learn from others, and take the lesson from you is that, not when you show up, but you show up to give. Right? You show up to serve, you show up to help, and the problem solving skill from there. So, wow, powerful episode.
Sorry, Russell, I was using an example from my own experience. If I want to talk to Russell Westcott, I'll be at the RAIN meeting when Russell Westcott's there. So so that way I'm not on his time, right? If Russell's in the room and at the meeting, he's there to talk to members, right? Just as an example, right? So for example, if someone wants to talk to me, I'm pretty public where I'm going to be. So just be there and I'll happily talk to you. But the rest of the time it's between business and my family, right? My kids are really young. So, I'm very protective of my time, right? So, yeah.
Nice.
And again, use the same rules with anyone, right? Yep. If you know where they're going to be there, right?
Perfect way to end it. And I know Dave is going to be editing this, so he'll have all the EQ curves from your voice to be able to put and do all that. And it's like he's going to be sick and tired of hearing your voice and sick and tired of hearing my voice, right?
Yeah, poor Dave. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, amazing. If any of you guys are interested in an amazing podcast engineer and editing team and stuff like that, let us know. We'll hook you up with one of the best around. Honestly, because I just take this file, I dump it onto a Dropbox thing, I put an intro and an outro, and Dave and his team, a week later say, yeah, it's all done, it's uploaded, show notes, everything's done. So,
yeah, shout out to Dave. I used to get negative feedback on my reviews because of the audio quality. Yeah. All that ended when I got Dave.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, Erwin, it's been too long. Until the next time, have yourself a wonderful day. We will get together very soon. And guys, stay tuned to your email. Stay tuned to maybe the podcast. I'll be letting you know more about Erwin's conference that's upcoming. And also, if I'm coming out to Ontario, we'll maybe make a party of it. We'll have a little bit of a celebration.
We'll have a party.
Yeah, we'll get together in a very tame and fun, inspiring way, right?
And big.
Yeah, we'll rent out Jack Astor's. Like the last time.
Might not be enough.
Right on. Okay, Erwin, thanks for your time, my friend. So sure hope you enjoyed this episode. What was your favorite part? I think my favorite part of the conversation talking with Erwin is how he's building his future for his children. How he's buying each of them a property while they're still young. As well, did you pay attention to that announcement that Erwin had made? And did you mark down the date when that upcoming event is going to be happening? So make sure you pay attention to my YouTube channel and podcast for more announcements as that event comes near. One final thing I want to let you know before you run off. In this video, Erwin and I talked about opportunities in the Edmonton and Alberta real estate marketplace. Before you jump into that marketplace, you're probably looking for a little bit of guidance, knowledge, insights, and wisdom before jumping headfirst into that marketplace. The Edmonton and Alberta marketplace is hot as a pistol right now, but there are people that are making some big mistakes jumping in. If you'd like to book a consultation before jumping in with both feet, let me know. In the description below, wherever you're watching this video, there will be some information on how you can book a consultation. These consultations are one-on-one and they're by appointment only. So if the link is still active, you'll have an opportunity to booking a one-on-one consultation to see if the Alberta marketplace is right for you. Just check out the description below, hit the link, fill out a few questions, and you'll be taken directly to my calendar. All right, hope to see you on the other side. Bye for now. Hey, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you are interested in moving forward with velocity, if you're interested in being a successful real estate investor, only 2 simple next steps from here. Number 1, below where you're watching this, there will be an opportunity for you to subscribe. And over here will be a hand-selected video for you to keep moving forward. Continue your journey forward. Just click on over here for that hand-selected video for you, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.